was watching a thing about like mold on bread, and
Your life is so interesting, Blake. Hey, welcome to episode 183 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick. I'm here with Blake.
hey Nick,
And Paul.
Yo.
Hi, guys.
hey,
Been a little
it's been a while, been like 3 weeks.
It's been 5 weeks. We just discussed this off the air. Blake was like, yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Can't believe it. And Paul and I both looked at him and said, it's been 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know where those other 2 weeks went.
You were blackout drunk.
I wish.
How's it? So you guys got, you been playing stuff?
Good, I've been playing some stuff.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to, Nick?
I've had a baby. No, I mean, I didn't give birth, but I still...
You were involved, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, my wife had a baby,
Yeah.
and now I have a baby boy.
Nice.
And that's been my whole thing. But I have snuck some games in here and there.
Snuck them in while no one was watching.
Yeah, while the baby's asleep.
Yeah.
While I can't sleep or whatever it is. We've been starting off with questions lately. Should I do that?
Sure, hit it.
All right. This is from a Mongolin. Good job, Blake.
Oh, thanks.
I bet that when they read this, I bet that when they will read this comment in a couple of weeks, they will have no clue what it was about. That is accurate. Do you have any
Especially because it's an
No.
extra 3 weeks. It's
I know.
not just the 2.
Yeah, I know, because it was only like, 3 weweeks ago, I remember this.
Uh-huh.
No, it was about me looking at an early access game that looked like
That's right.
something I would really like.
And then not
Village
buying it.
management, early
Proud
access,
of you.
janky, and then looking into the developer and seeing that they had a history of abandoning games
Uh-huh.
and being like, oh, maybe I'll just wait and see how this
yeah.
goes.
Good
And
job, Blake.
Thank you.
Anyway, I really like to talk about random stuff, even when I didn't play or have no interest in a given game. At the same time, I always get surprised when the episode ends. That's because I have places to be and I gotta shut it down. Otherwise, we will just ramble.
Just keep going, man.
With no structure, there's no natural
It's
endpoint.
not
At some
even
point, I have to
mentioning-
go. We're out of time. Bye.
Do you think for like an end of the year thing, we should do a podcast where we have no time limit and just go until we don't
And
keep
include
going?
include the 30-minute pre-chat. There's
Yeah,
just also about
why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
As soon as I don't have kids anymore.
That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying end of the
Reschedule
year.
for
End of the
you
year,
you
or my
can
kids
plan-
vanish?
No.
What are you talking about? Blake?
Yeah,
What are you talking about? Do you know how kids work?
Yeah, they grow up so fast. Everyone says.
Okay, sure.
No, but I mean, like, that's giving you 6 months to plan out, plan ahead.
I'm pretty sure at the end of the year,
6
I'm going to be in the U.S. So,
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
so you can do it without me. That'll be fine.
I suppose
You can you have your 8-hour marathon.
we could
podcast.
have rotating guests that come in every hour and keep us going, and we'll just be like, please let us stop.
Mongolin continues to say, any chance in extending the podcast to like 1.5 or 2 hours, especially when the comments section takes 1 hour out of each episode.
That last comment section was a really long one. Like I had actually forgotten we were even still in the comment section after like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
When you said, well, that's it for the comments.
I actually quite like the comment section bit. Like it's fun to have something just unprepared that you
Yeah.
end up talking about.
It's great. And usually because the comments...
As opposed to, sorry to interrupt, but as opposed to when we have nothing prepared anyway. And
But
we
you
still
know
talk.
what you've been playing, right?
Well, we're prepared to have
And you've
nothing
like probably
prepared.
thought ahead of time about some things that you were going to
That's
say
true,
about
that's
it.
true. All right, fair point.
And it is good
'Cause I don't
because...
even know that dude's name.
This is a Mongolin.
A Mongolin.
Yeah.
Brand new content.
To answer your question, Mongolin, maybe. We'll see. It really depends on how much time, I guess, specifically I have. Because I can't just abandon my wife. and children.
I am all for some sort of end of the year event podcast, because we used to do the D&D
That's true.
things, right?
That's true.
They were a hell of a thing to record. I actually hated editing them because
And it always sounded bad.
and it
because we had
always sounded
3
bad.
microphones
Yeah.
and 8 people.
Yeah,
and,
it never sounded very good. Like, it was really fun and I enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah.
but the whole editing process it literally took
Right.
hours to do.
Also, nobody listened to them.
Yeah, there was also that.
Yeah. This
So
is,
I'm all for finding something else.
you want something.
Yeah.
You want to just get drunk on the podcast, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, I'm gonna do that anyway. Maybe we can do that on the podcast.
Like, are you drunk right now? Is this why
5
you think it's
weeks.
only been 3 weeks?
Yeah.
All right. This is from Fuwasan. Dwarf Fortress is a weird example of early access game. It lived off donations, the Patreon, for years until it finally came out. It then made the creators rich overnight because of the huge cult following, but that would not be viable for most studios. Yeah, I think that, but that's also a case of like a passion project that
Yeah.
lived for so long, not just because of the donations, but because of the creators' desire to make this crazy, deep simulation.
This was in context to us talking about whether early access was beneficial for a game.
Yeah. And I still think generally no. I think it is a quick buck at the cost of later profits in most cases. There are exceptions. Dwarf Fortress is one. I would say Baldur's Gate 3 is one.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I would say the majority of early access games make the majority of their money in early access at the cost of more profit over the lifespan from just a straight launch.
I remember hearing maybe it was a GDC talk where someone said you only launch once.
Yeah,
That's
right.
And because there was this idea that we'll go into early access and then we'll launch.
Yep.
And it's like, well, no, early access is
Is
your
launch. Yes,
Yeah.
and then you're essentially launching with a half baked product.
Yeah.
And if your marketing strategy is like, we have to make a great game and word of mouth will save us, that's not going to work for early access. Because your early access is going to be buggy. It's going to be content light.
Yeah. I think as well that early access, I think it depends as well on how far through development you release an early access game. Because you know me, I have played some bare bones early access games and never seen them through. I don't even know if they ever were finished or they just languish in early access. And then you have those Kickstarter games from a few years ago. There was this like influx of Kickstarter early access games, and like probably like 80% of them just like fell apart, you know, and it gave this really bad vibe for like early access.
I mean, I personally know someone who did an early access, or a Kickstarter, that was very successful at the time. One of the best funded games of its time on Kickstarter, and it just vanished. That game's never coming.
Is that the
That's Project Phoenix?
Yeah.
And that's not an unheard of story.
Yeah. But then you do get those success stories, and it's, I think, trying to figure out what they did differently to others, because I really don't think you can just release a game that is like 10% of what it's going to be, and like expect it to
Except audience growth.
audience growth. Like Man of Lords was great, everyone was like looking forward to it and stuff, but now that everyone has kind of played the bulk of it, it just feels like you kind of it would have been better to just release a demo for a while and then be like, hey, here's what's coming, and then and then you can't, you can go back and develop more while the demo is over.
Yes.
And Steam does demos quite often now.
I think the best argument for early access is your studio is out of money.
Yeah.
And in order to finish the project, you need to generate some cash flow.
And it is good in that way. Like the Man of Lords guy has hired more people.
Yep.
But it also is just like you see how much work there is still to go. And I don't have the desire to play through every single update on that way,
I mean, the only early access game I really got deep into, I think, is Mountain Blade 2, Bannerlords. And I played the heck out of that game in early access, and then it launched, and I haven't played it since.
Yeah,
and I
neither.
think that's the story for most people who buy early access.
Well,
games.
when we played it, it was like very close to. It was like months away, basically, or maybe less than a year away from being released.
Yep.
Right. So it was like really close to being finished.
Yeah.
So I felt like I played the finished game.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a bunch of stuff they added, like they fixed up the story.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's. I keep seeing that there's new updates. So
Like it is cool. I do think about playing that every once in a while.
It's a really fun game.
Really cool.
Yeah,
I
but I've
wonder
also
if
played it.
Early access works better for games that plan to start an early access with a plan of how they're going to incrementally add content. Because, like, I was playing Raven's Watch,
Yeah.
which released in early access with only the first chapter. It's sort of a roguelike. It's weird to describe. You've got a time-based limit of how long you're in this area. It's co-op. You play like different heroes.
Yep.
They each have different play styles. Then after a certain amount of time, it'll teleport you to the boss.
Yep.
And you just have to fight the boss then.
Okay.
And then maybe a month or so ago, they did like chapter 2, which at that point is like doubling the content.
Sure.
But it started out like way too short.
Yeah.
But, kind of got a feel for it. But I still went back and played when chapter 2 came out.
Yeah. So it's like chunks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's sort of it's definitely one of those replayable games where you start over from the start every time. And they're just adding content. It feels all right. Because I also don't want to binge that game too much. It's not that style of game anyway.
Yeah. I think what you're describing is basically how kind of what I do with a few early access games where even though they've got updates continuously going, I basically don't play them for like a year, and then we'll
Jump back in
and be like, oh, look at all these like cool changes, Hell, I do that with No Man's Sky, and that's like been released for like years.
I mean,
That game released as early access.
It felt early access.
Pre-early access state.
I don't know. I mean, I've worked on a game that launched as early access, and the fatal flaw for that game was that they decided to go from they pivoted their game business plan kind of very late in the process. The thing that they were going that was early access was originally going to be the final game. They thought actually this could be a big hit. We'll launch early access and use that to build a larger game.
Yeah.
But the bones weren't really built for that. They didn't scope time to build the bones for that. And the fact of the matter is, early access is your launch. And if it's not monumental in its success, you will probably run out of funds if your development drags on, and especially if you haven't planned properly. So I don't know. And I think some games benefit better from early access. Roguelites are like a really good example. Hades, for example, because you are introducing new play styles, you're introducing new enemies, new like map generation, whatever it is. Like it can feel fresh with each update, and it's designed to be played lots and lots and lots of times implicitly.
Yeah.
So that during early access, it just feels like fun new updates and the game getting better and better.
Yes.
Versus static map drops or chapter story content, which worked for Baldur's Gate only in that they didn't do chapter 3.
Yeah.
Right? If they had released chapter 3 during early access, I suspect that game would not have been as big a hit at launch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do early access, and there are game types that work well with early access, and you have to really go into it, I think, with a plan of how to utilize early access to make your game better, not just as a means to get quick.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because you can either play into it as part of the marketing, as part of the strategy of the release of the game.
Yeah.
Or you're just trying to get the money now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can finish making the game.
The thing,
which sounds way less planned.
Yes, yes. The Baldur's Gate 3 thing, I think I mentioned it before, but you took so many player suggestions and implemented them over the few years of their early access that I think that's why that game is so good now. It was so thoroughly played and improved upon, and like they were clearly involved in the community and taking suggestions and trying things out. I don't think if they were doing early access to pump out content quickly, that wouldn't have worked.
No.
Yep.
And you're right that like them holding back like part 3.
So there was something to excite people, so that it generates word of mouth for the people who are really involved in the game. They're like, oh, I want to jump in and play this last chapter.
Yeah.
And then for everyone else, it's like, I've heard this game's really good. And it is really good because they've been in early access for 3 years, listening to the community and improving the small amount of content they had.
Yeah.
And is also kind of a game that is designed to be replayed.
Yep.
It is. I've replayed that start probably like 5 times.
Yeah.
That's such a Blake thing. Have you finished it?
No.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect Blake moment. Am I wrong? Speaking of, I'm going to go on to the second last comment, because the last comment was
yep.
jumping off point. This is Tarmizi Isan. Says, regarding finishing games, yeah, I empathize with Paul, as it's kind of a fatal flaw of mine as well, dropping playthroughs, as I tend to play multiple long-ass games concurrently, and the result is many, many unfinished games. As Path of Exile took over my life, I'll play other games when I'm done with the current league. I decided to make Persona 3 FES as my off-season game 3 years ago, got to in-game end of July before stopping for whatever reason. Suikoden Tier Crease, oh boy, I hope I'm saying these right. I'd say I've got a 70% chance of getting it right. Got all 108 characters, and as far as I know, the end was near, and I stopped as well. At some point, I was juggling Pillars of Eternity, Deadfire, and Pathfinder Kingmaker, and you can already guess how it turns out. Most, if not all, the games I have finished on the short side: Transistor, Bastion, etc. The most recent one I finished was Disco Elysium in January. Yeah, that sounds about right.
You can't play 2 heavy RPGs at the same time.
No,
like that.
that's true.
You also just don't need to finish games. It's fun.
I actually have fallen into this trap recently, where I got quite far through The Witcher 3, and then I started playing Cyberpunk, and I got quite far through Cyberpunk, and then I started playing a bunch of little games.
I'm like just over 50. I'm in 50 something hours now of Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
and I haven't played it for probably like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's in the back of my head that I do plan to play it, but I also know, because I looked at my save files and how much time I'd played. 50-something hours every time is when I'd last played it. It's like this. It's like this sweet spot where I'm like, I've kind of.
You got your character built.
Yeah,
You got what you,
you
wanted to out of the game
Yeah.
already, so like you don't need to go through and find out what
and
The
the
story
thing-
is good in that game.
It
quite
is.
often.
It is.
You know? And so I kind of do want it to wrap up.
I've just gotten into the Phantom Liberty stuff.
Yeah.
It's really great, really
Yeah.
great. And I do want to finish it, but I'm getting distracted by other games now.
Yeah.
Life's tough.
I will say I started feeling the burnout on Zelda Tears of the Kingdom back when I probably put in 150, maybe even 200 hours, like a lot of time in that game.
Yeah.
I did like 130 shrines. There was like 150 shrines in that game, so I was like getting through that content, and I was
Man,
I could feel myself burning out. I'm gonna go hard on the story and finish it, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
Because the ending is great, like a really really cool boss fight, really satisfying ending. I'm glad I finished it, but you have to. You have to make that decision. You have to say, I've had a really good time exploring the world and doing the open world stuff. I want to close this out.
Yeah, it is. It
or
is a
I want to
weird.
close the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing, though. I think your playstyle it's not wrong, but I do think you're missing out on what the developers have tried to tie things together. You know, like a satisfying ending can really make a good experience great.
That's true.
And I think that I'm missing that, for example, in Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. I've had a really good time, but I haven't closed it out, and so it's like, yeah, I had a really fun game. It was a really fun game, but I can't yet say that's a great game because I haven't closed the loop yet.
The Witcher, like the Witcher had this thing with me very similar, where like I got into the DLC where you go to the other land. I can't remember what it's called, but like I stopped like
I think it's Kalimdor, by the way.
Kalimdor. Yeah. But like with games like that I enjoy so much, there is this feeling of like I don't want it to end.
Yeah.
So I don't finish the story, but by not finishing the story, I get tired of it and stop playing.
Yes. And that's the thing.
There is a bit of that as well.
Because I finished Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I know there's shrines left for me to do, and I want to go back and do them, but I don't feel that pull. So there is a cost here.
Yeah.
But I got the awesome ending.
Nice.
And so like I'm happier with that than if I had just burnt out. I'm gonna go on to the last question now, unless you guys have anything. Nope.
No.
This is from Aiden Sichi 9327. He says, "Hey, have you heard of this game Animal Well? Discuss."
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. So I've been playing Animal Well. It's good. It's really good. Go ahead, Blake. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask something dumb.
Go ahead.
Is it a well filled with animals, or is it about keeping the animals well, like healthy?
It's a well filled with animals.
Okay.
But it's also not really a well. It's just a big cave.
It's just a cave.
And there's a lot of water in it, so I think that's why it's called Animal Well, because it's like
I mean, look, from my experience with video games, wells always lead to caves. So
that's true. Yeah. It's really fun. It's if you haven't heard of Animal Well, it's a Metroidvania style game, except that it's not really combat.
It's mostly puzzles, right?
It's puzzle. It's a puzzle platformer.
Yep.
So you're jumping around, getting to point A to B, and then like you'll get into a room and there's like a bunch of buttons to press, but you have to press them in a weird way.
neat. Yeah.
And it's really good. Really interesting tools at your disposal, like really unique. So for example, the only like combat tool you have is a firecracker, and it's only useful when you're being chased by a dark spirit thing, and those are not very common.
Right.
And so you kind of get surprised by them, and then you rapidly try and go to your inventory and throw it down and avoid getting hit, and then
So you can die.
yeah. There's lots of hazards.
Yeah.
But it's not a lot of combat.
Right. I see.
For example, there are dogs, and one of the tools, you can maybe jump over a dog, but it's really hard because it'll try and jump up and nip you. So usually when you're getting when you see a dog, you have to just kind of leave the area until you get the frisbee or the disc as it's called, and then you can like throw the disc and they'll catch it, and then you can walk past them.
Yep. That's good.
The tools are great. So there's the disc.
Yeah.
And like you can use it to distract like dogs, but you could also like if you throw it against a wall, it'll bounce off the wall and return in the same direction. So if there's two walls, it'll just bounce back and forth indefinitely.
Oh yeah.
And then you can jump on top of it, and you can like sail across.
Oh wow.
Back and forth. So you can use it to travel long distances if there's a wall. You can use it to hit switches on and off. If there's two switches, and so there's like lots of little interesting. If there's like a narrow gap in the wall and a switch on the other side, you can hit it. Lots of little interesting interactions. Then there's a slinky. I think it's called a spring or a coil or something like that in the game. But it will just travel down steps, and it takes time to do that. So if there's like a timed button thing, where you want to stand on one button for one period of time and then hit a button at the bottom after a period of time, a slinky will get.
I see.
Done.
Yep.
And there's like lots of interesting puzzles around that. There's a top, which just sort of spins back and forth, but it will dig into soft ground, if there's soft ground around. There's a bubble wand, and you can just creates a bubble, and the bubble will float up. But if you jump, you can jump on the bubble, and the bubble will drift down.
Yeah.
So you can use the bubble as a platform up to a maximum height. And there's a flute, which you can play songs on. And there's something else I don't remember, but they're all basically yo-yo. Yo-yo is really fun, but they're all basically little toys.
Yeah.
And with really interesting movements. And so all the puzzles are based around these interesting tool movements. And then also animals.
Yep.
There are animals often in screens that have their own kind of rules. So for example, I just did one recently where there's a penguin, and it will dive over a gap and slide into walls, and you can just sort of play with those rules a little bit. There's like things that are attracted to the sound of the flute. Or there are like crows that if you hit a red button, the crows get very angry. There's like hummingbirds that will pop your bubbles if you try and use the bubble thing. So they're hazards.
What's the goal of the?
That's a great question.
The goal
of the game.
And how do the animals interact with it? What is
That's a wonderful question, Paul. There are 4 flames scattered around this quite large map, and as far as I can tell, all you have to do is collect the flames and return them. But then that's the core goal.
Yeah.
But then there's also eggs. And there's like, I would say at least 60, possibly like 100 eggs. I don't actually know how many eggs there are, but there's a ton of eggs, and they're hidden all over the place. Like breakable walls, hidden walls.
Are these the core
paths.
seeds of this game?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And they all have interesting names. Some of them are kind of self-referential. But those are like, that's the true challenge. And you have to get all the eggs to like get the true ending.
How many eggs have you got?
40?
Of, what did you say, 100?
I don't actually know how many, because it's a game where I don't want to look things up.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
Anything I look up is
anything
gonna spoil.
puzzle, you just can't even go
exactly.
That's the point. But if you're supposed to collect a number of eggs to get the good ending,
there's a lot of.
You're just gonna know.
There's a wall where you can see all your eggs on display, and there are gaps And so I could
see.
probably
I
count
see.
the
So
gaps,
you
but
can-
there are,
you can
there
tell
are
how
more
many.
gaps than I
Yep.
want to count right
I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
And like at certain increments, like I think at 5 eggs and then like 15 eggs and then 30 eggs, I unlocked new tools,
Oh, cool.
Ah, sick.
which are like I guess optional tools.
Mm.
And most of them don't do much. I think the first one was the flute, which is you can use it for fast travel and some other little niche uses. One of them, and then like the other ones were like interacting with the map, marking things on the map, kind of things. They're more utilitarian and not puzzle solvy.
Yep.
But then the top, I think, was one that I unlocked, and that's been quite puzzle solvy.
Ah, cool.
Spinning top. Now, I'm really enjoying the game. However, it's really hard. Like the platforming is brutal and unforgiving. There's no finesse to the jumping.
Yeah.
Like it has a set jump height.
Right.
So jumping is all about timing and movement, and not about like how long you're pressing the A button for. Because if you press the A button, you do a max height jump.
Yep.
Yep.
On top of that, as far as as far as like Metroidvanias go, the world does not feel very cohesive.
Okay.
It feels like a bunch of rooms that are slapped together, and there are themes to sort of sections of the world. But if I compare it to like my favorite Metroidvania of the last like decade or whatever, which is Hollow Knight, when you're playing through Hollow Knight, you start to get a sense of the whole area and the geography of the whole area. Like, oh, these are cliffs. This is the sort of top level of the city. This is the underground city. Oh, this is the abyss. This is like the graveyard, and you start to sort of start to get a feel of how the world is put together, and it feels very real.
Yeah.
And this doesn't quite have that. This feels more like a bunch of puzzle rooms slapped together with a theme. And sometimes they're also kind of disjointed.
Right.
So I got my first of the 4 flames last night, and it just suddenly happened. I didn't think I was close to one. It didn't feel like the difficulty was spiking at all. It was just like I stumbled into the room, and there it was. And I was like,
wow.
oh, okay. And I had found one in a different area ages ago, and to actually get to it, I have to do quite a difficult challenge. And so it's a little bit disjointed, a little bit uneven.
Yeah.
But it's made by one man. The actual guy, like the actual size of the file is like 40 megabytes, something silly.
That's amazing.
Because it's very low size and very 8-bit art style. But he's done some very clever things to make it look and feel beautiful and dynamic. There's these beautiful like fog effects and water effects and all these things that make it feel much higher res than it actually is. So it's got a retro sort of look to it, but a very modern overlay.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel dynamic and I really love the look of the game. The art style is great. I really, really like it. So that's Animal Well.
Is it roguelike? Like
No, it's not randomized.
Okay.
It is static. It is a Metroidvania. So
okay.
it is, if you were to get a guide, for example, you know where everything
I
is.
see. Yeah.
And this is a game where so much is hidden very intentionally that you kind of, I think, staying away from guides is the way
How
to
many
go.
along that Metroidvania style, how many times have you picked up a new thing and been like, "Oh, now I know what to do in this place from earlier"?
Several times. There's not a ton of tools.
Yeah.
But each one, I think generally I've kind of like gone, oh, cool, I can go back to this area and figure this thing out.
Yep.
But then there's at least 2 things in the game I can think of off the top of my head where I still have no clue. And I think I'm getting close to having all the tools, but there are these stone pedestals with circular recesses in them.
Yeah.
And like if you go on up to it, it says like circular recess. And I'm like, I don't know what that's for. I've got a bunch of things that are circles and none of them work.
Really?
Bubbles don't work.
Disc
This doesn't work.
Mm.
So I don't know. And then there are these like little columns that you can see kind of in the background that have what appear to be like glass orbs with kind of a red tint. And those look very clearly like functional.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like
what they do.
intentional.
Yeah. I have no idea what they do. And I don't know if I just don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to keep playing.
Sometimes, sometimes I play games where I look up something,
Yeah.
like a game where you have to be very, like what you're saying,
Yeah.
you would have to look up to be like, is this actually something?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but I don't know. I don't want to know what it is. I just want to
yeah.
be told that it is something.
Is this useful?
Yeah. Is
Not
this an
what-
actual?
Not what is this useful for?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna sit on it. I will say, like, the difficulty is much higher than I would have thought.
Oh wow.
In terms of the puzzles or in terms of like actual mechanics?
It's actually the platforming. The puzzles are not
Yeah,
that
okay.
hard. I found the puzzles to be pretty easy. It's the platforming that's quite brutal.
Would you
so like the flame that I found, in order for me to for the second flame I want to get, in order for me to get it, I have to take this mock disc. So there's like you get a disc, but there's also a mock disc. And the first time you get the disc, this ghost dog appears. It's a big ghost wolf, and it will follow you wherever you go on any screen, and it will hurt you if it gets in range. And the way you make it go away is you put the mock disc where you got the disc. However, to get to the flame, I have to put the mock disc in a different location.
Oh.
But I need the disc to get to that location.
Yeah.
So I have to be chased, as far as I can tell, by the wolf all the way to this
Yeah.
location, which means I have to do really tight, difficult platforming while
Yeah.
being harassed by a ghost.
That's the
It sounds
worst.
like a nightmare.
Oh my God.
And I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a workaround. Maybe I can get away without using the disc. But
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it, and it's the platforming that's hard.
It's too
The
stressful.
puzzles I've solved.
Yeah, yeah.
I've solved every puzzle on the way there.
Mm.
It's just now getting there while being chased by a ghost. And
Yep.
I don't.
Yep. I've always been terrible at platformers. Always. And I do get that. I get that stressed out feeling.
Yeah, yeah. This is any sort of chasing pressure.
Yeah.
You remember the Angry Sun in Mario?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Angry Sun, but the Angry Sun doesn't follow a predictable path.
Yeah.
It just and it goes to every screen you're on.
Hmm.
It's more like the Angry Mask in Mario 2, if you remember that.
I don't remember that.
No, okay, well,
But I know
Get on my level,
I know the
boys.
feeling well of just like you're under pressure to do this thing that you can't make a mistake on.
yeah,
And I hate it.
yeah.
I
it
hate
sucks.
that in video games when they do that.
Yeah, so the difficulty is quite high. For
Mm.
that. So that's Animal Well.
What do you lose when you die?
You go back to wherever your last save was,
Right.
which is there's telephones scattered around. You know,
Okay.
because it's an animal well, so it's gonna be
This
telephones
is
in it.
the collection of objects in this game is just so weird.
It sounds really cool, to be honest. It sounds like a
It's really good.
game.
It's like $30 or something like that on the Switch.
Yeah.
So if you're keen on like a unique kind of big puzzle platformer,
Mm.
there's no reason to not get it, in my opinion, other than you don't have $30. And Paul, I'm pretty sure you have $30.
Well, if you lend me $30.
I'm not gonna do that. I don't have $30. I spent it on Animal Well.
It sounds good.
I probably will play it at some point, I suspect.
it's
Because
really
I'm playing Talos Principle 2 at the moment.
Tell me
And
about it.
It's really cool. I played the first one ages ago, remember nothing at all about it. Like I played it when it first came out, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that was quite a while ago. Basically, you're just a robot dude that wakes up, and you're like this 1,000th of the robot dudes. And their goal was to build 1,000.
Yep.
So it's quite special. You're the 1,000th one.
You're the last one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then in your welcoming ceremony, a thing pops up and tells you to go to this island, I think it was. They keep trying to do story at me, but it's a puzzle game.
Okay.
Um,
Do you skip the
Story
story?
at you.
they keep trying to do story. And like the annoying thing is like all the voice acting and stuff is like actually quite lovely. But I keep just wanting to go to the puzzles.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
the very like first sequence is the tutorial where you wake up and you're like, it takes you through that, and that happens before you wake up as the 1,000th
Yep.
sentient robot.
Yeah.
But there's lots of little lore things where you find out things about your civilization's past. And the whole idea is that these guys are way descendants of humans, and humans got wiped out after creating these sentient robots. But you essentially end up going to this island where it's covered in these little puzzle rooms. The section that happens before you wake up is also the same kind of puzzle room where they're like teaching you how to do the puzzles.
Oh yeah.
And then it sort of alludes to there's like further tests now that you're alive in the 1,000th robot. A lot of the puzzles So the first like 2-ish islands I did, all the puzzles were very similar. They're like light and laser based puzzles.
Okay.
Try where you've got like, it always feels as though you don't have enough of the thing that interacts with the puzzle to be able to solve it until you realize, oh, hang on, if I just move these things around,
Sure.
Yep.
or I do this series of steps. The thing that I really like is that each room is self-contained and has exactly what you need to solve the puzzle.
Right.
And it does this clever thing where when you get introduced to a new tool, it'll give you quite a simple thing to solve the first time. But it doesn't tell you how it works. It doesn't tell you what you can do with it, what options there are and things like that. And then it'll give you the next puzzle that's harder. And you can only solve it by figuring out this other aspect that the tool has.
Right.
And that whole side of it is really fun because you know you're in a room that has everything you need to solve the thing.
Yep.
And there's only 2 things to interact with. So there's got to be a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the trick?
Yeah.
You're always thinking, what's the trick?
And then it'll build on that and keep using that in
Yeah.
different ways.
That's cool.
So there's 6 big islands. Each of them has 3 smaller islands attached to it with 10 puzzles. And I've only done about 2.5 of the big ones.
Yep.
So I've done about 30 something puzzles total.
Yeah. So you're almost halfway through.
Yeah, I think so. The downside is that all these islands are full islands with a bunch of area around these puzzle
Right.
rooms
Yeah.
that you can go off and explore.
And they're not
And there
related.
will be little bits.
Oh.
There'll be every so often you like stumble across like an audio log.
Oh,
Right.
cool. Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's,
yeah.
some lore and stuff.
Yeah, but it feels really painful to go find them.
Yeah.
I see.
Because other than that, the islands are quite sparse.
Right.
And you kind of feel punished just for going and exploring. But you want
They've
there to
split
be
the story
these...
and the puzzles up a little too much.
Yeah.
And
like actually spatially, so that there's like this time you spend walking down this
Yeah.
path that's clearly a path that takes like actually a few minutes to walk
Yeah.
down, find the thing.
There's no puzzle
There's
at
just
the
an
end of
audio.
it.
There's no puzzle. There's just an
Yeah.
audio log that.
Come on. Gotta have puzzles.
Yeah, it does seem like
just
they could have
keeps
structured
baiting
it.
me.
They could have structured it so that like you're walking along and maybe there's a fork in the road between like the puzzle and the audio log. You can go off into the fork, but it's not like a huge journey. It's kind of on the way, you know.
Yeah,
There would be
that
ways
would
to
be
structure
much
it.
better.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking of like The Witness, right? Did you ever play that?
I did, but I also don't remember that one so much.
That had I don't even remember if that even had a story. It just had like weird video and audio things every once in a while, but they were always.
It probably had a story. That guy loves to do story in weird, cryptic ways.
I think
You have to-
I got
you
the
have to, like,
feeling.
you have to play the game backwards. With
Yeah,
one eye closed.
I got
and-
the feeling that it was one of these like he has like absolute intention behind it. I don't know what that is
Yeah.
because everything I found like story
Yeah.
in quotes related just seemed random to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely meaning behind it. But all those things I found were like basically rewards for finishing a bunch of puzzles. And then you're like, oh, here's this like weird clip from a Russian movie that's playing now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's
I do
not-
really
yeah.
wish it was way more tied into just the puzzles, even if it was just that there was an extra puzzle room before it.
Yeah, yeah.
Even with like simple-ish puzzles, just to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
it feel like I achieved something by going down there.
It does seem very weird that it's separate like that.
It's quite, yeah, it's kind of strange. Other than that, though, like I've been really enjoying the puzzles and
Yeah.
the world, and like the interactions with the other people in the world does really feel like I had a lot of thought put into it.
Yeah.
There's different like characters. There's this whole philosophical thing going on of like you're the 1,000th, but people have been talking about whether they should make more. And there's like camps as to
Yeah.
whether creating more than 1,000 will create another downfall of civilization. And
That was the key that they made 1,001 robots, and that was the downfall. So this time just 1,000.
just 1,000.
Yeah.
Interesting. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would. I would, just because like the actual puzzles themselves are fun, and I do think that there's probably quite a lot interesting going on in the story. I just
Yeah.
keep skipping bits because I really like the puzzles.
Yeah, that's
And
the thing. I do like a puzzle game that is the puzzles are the focus.
yeah,
Like
and
they
this
don't
for sure is.
Yeah.
There's just segments of story bits. And
like. I mean, Myst, right? The
Yeah,
most
Riven
classic.
just came out.
Yes, I know. I'm actually keen to get that.
It's not early access, Blake. So
Forget it.
Yeah.
Not interested. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Mist. You said the word mist.
Oh yeah, like that. That story you discover along the way, and they're like rewards for finishing a load of puzzles,
Mm.
and that just starts off with like a short little like monologue at the start, and then boom, you're in it, and you're
Yeah.
like you have no idea anything else, and you just discover it along the way.
yeah.
I've been playing because I have the Google Play Pass thing. A bunch of Professor Layton games are on mobile, and they're on the Play Pass, and those are really fun.
Yeah,
Those are just puzzles, lots and lots of little puzzles
Yeah.
with some story in between, and the story's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
funny
cool.
and goofy. And so I reckon
that was a big series of games, wasn't it?
there's a bunch, yeah. So I hadn't played them back on.
Were
the
they on
3DS.
DS?
Yeah, they're on DS, and I
Wow.
hadn't played them.
Yeah.
But now I am. They're good.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have to actually buy them. I have also been playing Dave the Diver,
Oh right. Yeah.
and that game is great. It's hard, or maybe I'm bad at it, which both could be true. That game is really interesting purely because it has a real indie vibe, but is not an indie game, and also the publisher is not who I would have expected.
Who's the publisher?
Nexon. Do you know who Nexon is?
Ah.
Do they do like no? What do they do?
They did Maple Story. They did Vindictus. They mainly do like online kind of grindy Korean MMOs.
Yeah.
They also
free to play.
sell cards that you use to pay for things online.
Do they really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Nexon game card. Karma Coin is what
Yes.
it used to be called.
Karma
Yes.
Coin.
Yes. But I thought that was exclusively to pay for Nexon games.
Nope.
Really?
Nope. We
wow.
totally have Nexon game card as a payment provider for Path of Exile.
I had no idea.
Used to be Karma Coin.
Wow, amazing.
Wow.
But that game, it's like retro art style, kind of simplistic gameplay, quirky story, really interesting, funny characters. It has real indie vibes. But the team isn't like huge, but it's not tiny. And crazy that Nexon, this online free to play game giant, is the one that kind of made it.
That is odd.
But it's really that is a game that I'm really enjoying. It is like a swimming and fishing game for most of it, but then also you run a sushi store and you serving the fish that you've caught.
Okay.
But then also you're gonna need to grow some vegetables and rice to get the best sushi.
Wow. Okay.
And you're gonna want to breed some fish, of course.
Yeah.
But then also don't forget that there's an underwater secret sea people.
Yeah.
And they need help, and they've got their own gambling den. So you're gonna do some gambling.
Holy
Does
hell.
sound fantastic.
And the characters are really funny. Like
Yeah.
there's like the sushi. Every time you want to upgrade a sushi recipe, but of course there's lots of crazy meta systems about upgrading things. But like there's these like pixelated anime style like interstitial cutscenes of like the sushi chef being really serious with his blade.
Yep.
Like he's sharpening his blade, he's like filleting the fish, and then like he's like looking really proud holding up this knife, and then like the camera focuses a little bit and there's a fish in a tank behind him looking horrified. So there's like really goofy, doesn't take itself seriously. There's when you upgrade a weapon, there's this really neckbeardy anime loving guy with like waifu figurines,
Oh my
like
god.
passionately typing away, and it's really like funny. It makes it fun of all of the
Wow.
characters. So it's really, really a real joy to get deeper and deeper into that game. I would say I'm not even necessarily halfway based on the number of fish breeding sections that are left in my fish farm. But I really just love the vibe of it. And it came out at the same time as Dredge.
Yeah.
And so I got a Dredge bundle where it comes with Dredge and Dave the Diver. It's just like a fishing
Ah.
bundle.
Yep.
Was there a crossover DLC?
I think there was some crossover.
There
Well,
might be. There's
with
definitely a
Dredge and
Godzilla crossover DLC in Dave the Diver, which
Oh my
I don't know
God.
anything about yet.
Wow.
Um,
That's so funny. I had no clue that Dave the Diver was like had that much depth going on to it.
there's
like,
quite literally a lot of depth.
yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised as well. There's like tons of weird mini games. There's one I had to do at the neckbeard weapon upgrade guy. For whatever reason, it just shows him falling asleep, and then there's a dream sequence where you're cheering for his anime waifu in a crowd of people who look like him, and it's
God.
like you're using the sticks to like raise these glowing sticks together and like clap them, and then like go yeah,
Oh, well,
yeah
you're
on the rhythm.
You're in charge of the crowd.
You're in charge of him in the crowd. It's a
Oh.
rhythm game.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then when you do well in that, I've unlocked a a platformer with playing as the waifu character.
Okay.
It's bizarre and I love it. There's
Yeah,
just so
that
much.
sounds fantastic.
It's
What is
tons
the
of-
what is the thing that has surprised you the most of that game?
well,
What
that's-
also? Hold on. What when you first bought it? What did you think it was going to be like?
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be like a fun fishing
Yeah.
meta progression game.
Yeah.
Like because there's a game I've been kind of chasing this high for a long time. They're like these old Flash mining games where like
Okay.
you're like a little miner guy and you go down into the mines, you mine some rocks, and you can
Mm.
only carry so much. And you go back up and you upgrade your stuff, and you can go deeper and mine different kinds of rocks and carry more ore.
Mhm.
And you keep going until there's like a boss fight at the end.
Right.
And it's that sort of constant incremental progression.
Yep.
And I really not many games do that well.
Mm.
And this game has that. It does
Yeah.
that quite well, but in the form of fishing. And I was like, that sounds great.
Mm.
What I didn't know was that there's also like a restaurant management component, and
Yeah.
like I was like worried because that sounds dumb and stressful, but they've made it fun,
Ah.
which is impressive. And then they unlock a farming. So I think that it's more
Yeah.
the thing that surprised me most is the sheer number of different gameplay facets there are to explore.
Do you know if you've encountered all of them?
I don't think I have. Just because there's like a whole mini game
Yeah.
app on my in-game phone, and I think I've unlocked 2 things in there.
A game like that is this is this worthy of like a new genre called like Frog Fractions like or something? Where it's like the game you initially thought it was is actually like
I don't think it's quite Frog Fractions-y in that Frog Fractions, the whole part of it is how weird it gets.
Yeah,
This
I
doesn't
suppose.
necessarily get weird. It's all cohesive.
But it's the thing of like you didn't expect this and then it just keeps getting bigger and
yeah.
bigger kind of thing. Like you thought, oh, it'll just be a cool like fishing game where it upgrades some stuff, and then suddenly it's just like this whole massive thing.
I don't even know that it's necessarily getting bigger. It's more that it's got a wide variety of things because the core loop doesn't change.
Mm.
They just add more things that you can do to
Yeah.
succeed in more and better ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are other games like it. I would compare the closest comparison I think is like WarioWare, and then it's a bunch of little kind of simplistic games
Yeah.
that are all kind of tied together. Although
Okay.
WarioWare you do them in sequence, and they get
Yeah.
harder and harder, and they're super short. But this is quite simple mini games that are tied into a solid core meta progression loop. But there's also boss fights and like
Yeah.
the actual core gameplay is more expansive than I think I've even found yet. Like
Sounds
I only just recently unlocked the ability to lug off giant sharks. Right, that was not a thing I had the ability to do. I had to cut them up in the water.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cut 'em up in the water.
So yeah, I don't know. It's really good. If you haven't, I think I got the bundle for $30, maybe it was
Okay.
40.
Mm.
Well worth it.
Cool.
And I haven't touched Dredge yet.
Yep.
And you really like Dredge, right, Paul?
I think Dredge is fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get into that one. But right now I'm just having fun. Dave the Diver's super lighthearted.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
It seems really popular. Like I always see, it popping up on my Steam
get it, Blake.
thing.
Get it. Pretend it's early access, and all these games are getting updated as you're playing.
Oh, sweet.
There's one more game I
Oh
got. And it is Tiny Rogues, and that was because you'd played it.
Ah, cool. Yep.
And that game's fun,
Yeah.
but quite easy.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel very flexible.
Yeah, it's kind of like you just always gotta get the best weapon and get as much food as you can, and like as long as you got a couple bombs, a couple keys to make sure that you can always have access to the best weapon and food.
Yeah, I was playing it for a while. I don't remember
I
how
haven't.
far I got or anything.
I'm up to a part where you have to beat it with 5 characters, and I've done like 3.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I think that's
if
maybe where I stopped playing.
I'll probably keep going at some point and see what happens next, but the fact that that's the structure is a bit worrisome. Where it's like the structure is grind with all of the characters.
Yeah. I don't think it was pretending to be anything other than that, though.
Yeah.
And, like, that was how it was described to me, because it was Damo that recommended it to me,
Okay.
a friend from work. And it's just sort of a simple little roguelike loop.
Yeah.
Where I don't really mind if the goal is to just keep beating it with different characters. I only played it for a while. I played it for like a few weeks, I think.
Sure.
On and off.
Maybe my issue is that the characters don't feel that different. They all of them have projectile weapons. All of them have dash. All of them, like they're all kind of. The core gameplay is always the same. It is target the enemy and shoot.
You go for different stats though, depending on. Yeah. I had a pretty fun little melee build and stuff going.
But melee feels exactly like spellcasting, which feels exactly like bows.
It's just shorter range, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like a thing's spinning around you rather than shooting things out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm not disagreeing, really, by the way. I was fine with that, I think, for a while.
Yeah, it's a fun little roguelike. Don't get me wrong, but I think I like it. Even though Dave the Diver is not at all the same thing, it's my preference to play right now.
Yep.
That's all. Those are my things.
That's cool. Yeah.
I've been playing a bit of Hades too.
Oh, yes.
Because, yeah, it released, I think it is an early access, right?
Yes.
Although it feels like I got up to the end boss, so I didn't beat the end boss. But for an early access game, I'm surprised there's more that I haven't looked up what's missing or anything, but like it feels like there's a chunk of the game there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hades was also in early access for a long time. And from memory, I think they added things like the heat system.
Right.
Which, like, once you beat the game, you can make new runs more difficult.
Yeah.
And there's rewards for that. And I think they added new weapons. And they also added lots and lots of new story interactions and mods and powers and stuff to, like, make each run feel a little bit more varied.
Yeah, it just feels like there's a lot already. I mean, they might add like a bunch of new characters.
You should see what they're planning to add then.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because I haven't played a boatload of it, but I reckon I played like maybe 15, 20 hours or something.
Like a dinghy load.
Dinghy load, yeah. Not a full boat.
Canoe
not a boat.
Sure.
More like a dinghy.
More like a canoe load.
Canoe, like maybe like a
more than a canoe.
Kayak.
Like a
raft.
Pool
Yeah,
lilo.
raft. Is it?
Yeah.
A raft load.
A raft load.
A raft load.
And
good amount.
That is.
I've unlocked
Hold a couple people.
I've unlocked a bunch of stuff, but haven't beaten the end boss because there was more phases than I expected.
Is the end boss Hades?
No. Should I spoil it?
Is the end boss Hades too?
It's the boss of me playing. No, I don't know where I'm going with that joke. It fell off immediately. Yeah,
the boss is yourself?
Yeah,
Whoa.
The monitor turns into a mirror. It turns on your webcam.
Yeah. It was you all along.
And every time you hurt yourself in game, you hurt yourself in real life.
Oh my god.
Great. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, it feels. I played a bunch of the first one. I didn't go real far through the heat system.
Yeah,
but did increase it a few times.
I think I have a psychological block around getting Hades 2 because I beat the first one. I got maybe 7 heat or 8 heat in, which is not a ton, but it's not a little. And there was lots and lots of story stuff, lots and lots of like romance things that I never even knew existed. and I'll probably never get to. Like most of the story elements, other than the core story loop, are still open ended, and I just don't know if I. It feels like I'm wasting game if I get Hades 2, and I didn't do all that stuff or even some of that stuff in Hades 1.
No, you got to just not finish games. Man.
That's a
You
real.
got to play what you want to play.
Yeah, you got to play what you want to play. That's a real weird feeling to be like, I'm wasting this game by getting the sequel to it.
Well, like I didn't. If the first one didn't grip me so much that I wanted to do all of that stuff, what am I playing the second one for? If the gameplay is functionally the same,
Yeah.
I can go and play Hades right now.
It does feel there's different weapons and it feels different to play.
Does it feel better?
I feel like I like it more.
Okay.
But I think that may be that I found one weapon type that I really like.
That's the other thing. That game really wants you to try a bunch of different weapons.
Yes.
And I found like 2 weapons, I think, and I was like, I really like these. And the game's like, yeah, but try the sword. try the grenade launcher. Try the gloves. And in fact, I think the gloves were my favorite. But like,
yeah.
there's all these
So it was
things.
right.
But the thing is, like, yeah, sure, I'll try the gloves. Great, gloves are awesome. I want to do the gloves. No, go back to the sword. Have you tried the whip or whatever? It's just like, but I want to do the thing I want to do. I don't know.
At least it like the game pushes you to explore that. When like
Yeah,
so this like Dark Souls is like, oh, you can try all these weapons. There's massive arsenal of weapons you could try, but really, if you don't specifically know that these weapons already exist, like you're gonna like not have the stats and you're not gonna have the proper build
that
towards
sounds
it.
like a bad game.
What are you talking about?
So you're saying the game is like, here's all these things.
Are you getting the
and
DLC?
you have to know that you're going to get them.
Oh, we haven't
and
talked about
plan
the
around. You
Elden
plan your
Ring
build around
DLC.
this thing that you don't know exists yet. That sounds like a cool game, Blake.
Yeah, I know it
Speaking
does.
of the
It
DLC,
does. I don't know
hang
why.
on. Well, let's go. Well, we got a few minutes, right? Let's dive into this Shadow of the Erd tree.
Wow.
Huh? Okay. I'm not getting the DLC. First of all, for
Okay.
those wondering in this room, no, thank you.
Why?
And I'll tell you what, I feel very vindicated because there's a lot of controversy about that game being too hard, not fun, and also like upgrade systems being bad and wrong, and also a bunch of the weapons being either overpowered or useless. Bad game. I'm gonna say it. Bad game.
Well,
Yeah, maybe the world
I
is
haven't actually
beautiful.
looked at
Maybe
anything.
the animations are great. Maybe
Yeah.
the art style is amazing. Like, awesome. That's great.
But you're saying the mechanics
But
of
if-
what's happening there, like
if-
the actual game design.
I've seen video of people who just cannot get close to a boss because it nukes them with 14 arrows every time they try, and it's like,
Have they tried dodging those arrows?
Yeah, you got to
Yeah,
dodge.
yeah,
I
they
think
dodge
you're
them.
supposed
They dodge
to dodge them.
okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if one of them hits
just-
you lose 80% of your health.
Have they tried pretending to be an egg for 2 minutes?
Oh, that's what it is.
Have they tried emoting at the boss?
Have they tried hitting a wall 100 times?
Yeah.
And then skipping
Have they
past
tried talking
Well, it's
to?
DLC. It might be like 150. It's
Yeah.
only one way to find
Gotta
out.
make it. I mean, you gotta make it hard. You
I
can't-
just think I think people went into that game thinking I love Elden Ring because I've been told I love Elden Ring.
Do you
And then
think it's the shine is?
the reality of that game has hit them like a
Yeah.
truck. Also, that to access the DLC, you have to go through an optional end game boss.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to get through. You have to kill. I think his name is Mohg. Mohg.
I think Dark Souls 1 had a sort of similar thing. Like, I'm sure there was a DLC where you went into a giant painting, but to
That's
unlock.
Mario 64, by the way.
And no, yeah, well, I mean that the Dark Souls is just a spiritual successor from Mario.
I would say you're not probably all that far off.
Yeah, I swear there was a guessing again. Here we go. I swear there was a DLC where you went into a giant painting, but to even access that world, you had to do a whole bunch of like convoluted things to even just access that DLC. Like,
You buy the DLC and you don't actually.
and you don't know, and it's like basically a puzzle to like get into it.
I think calling it a puzzle is generous. Because a puzzle, usually there's some sort of clue.
Some logic to it.
Yeah. I think it more is like a riddle or an enigma.
It's like an Alice in Wonderland riddle where there is actually no answer.
Yeah, the answer is get a critical mass of players to try throwing everything at the wall, and then someone goes,
Yeah.
here's the solution.
It's a great game.
You have to hit a wall 100 times.
Yeah, it's
Fun.
It's funny. I've not really seen what people have been saying about it. but I have like
It's basically two camps. It's like I love this game.
yeah.
I die every time I log in, and people are saying I hate this game. It's too hard because I die every time I log.
But
in.
it's so interesting then because I'm assuming that everyone that bought the DLC knows what they're in for.
Yep. And even then, they're saying these bosses hit too hard. Like I remember saying someone, it was a meme post. It was like, they were saying, joking about how it was greedy of them to try and get 2 light attacks in after a 45-second enemy attack combo. You know, instead of just the 1 light attack.
Yeah, I have heard that specifically. I think.
Doesn't that sound horrible? Like dodge? How? I don't
want to do it.
I don't play Monster Hunter because I don't want to do a 30-minute boss fight. Like this is that, but more punishing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Are you gonna play it?
I never even finished the first one.
Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I got everything I needed to out of it. I didn't need to finish it.
Oh, sounds like you're bad at video games. Is that? Am I doing Reddit right?
Yeah, you're doing it right.
Okay, great.
The problem is I am bad at video games, so
I like the thing is we've talked about this. I really like it, and I liked how hard and weird and obscure some of the things are. But also, I didn't finish it because of some of those things.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it.
Okay.
I like the world.
Sure. That's fine. I think the world is fine.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't like that exploration feels punishing and often useless. People were. I remember reading a complaint that like whenever you go into a cave in Zelda, you don't get anything useful except you kill a frog, right?
You get what do you get? You get something out of there though.
You get like the frog jewels when you kill the frog.
Yeah. Aren't they useful?
Yeah, they are. But this is someone's complaint. Is like you get a collectible.
Yeah.
Whereas in Elden Ring, which is super cool, you get a summon you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Like that's their argument, and I feel like that's not a valid argument. Like, cool, I get a weapon I don't have a build for, or a summon that's worse than something I got. Literally 20 hours ago, 30 minutes into the game, I got one of the best things in the game. The difficulty's all over the place. The map, that's to me does not tell me it's like a nice cohesive open world. It is scattershot, a team throwing all their ideas at the wall.
But that is what that whole thing that you're talking about is what has led to their success.
Yeah, and I still don't understand why.
I don't think I want to play open world games anymore. I was thinking there was something I was looking at recently. Maybe it was Elden Ring. But like, there's so much time spent like running between things that.
Well, you gotta have.
I get really like focused on trying to do all the side things and everything. When really, if I can just play a game that just like has a set path.
Yeah.
I don't have to spend all that time, which like sure I feel like is exploring and that sounds fun, but I feel like mostly that's actually a chore.
Yes, and I think you've touched upon the reason I love Zelda so much is that the traversal between points is fun. Because of the way Link moves and because of all of the options you have to get from point A to point B, I really enjoy that aspect of it. And also, I
don't want to do that either.
That's fine.
You just want a linear.
I kind of do. I kind of just want like straightforward, just.
That's cool.
Just a linear thing, man. There's games for you.
Try Dave the Diver. It's not open world. It's a bunch of fun stuff to do.
Talos Principle has been like great.
Huh?
Talos Principle has been great.
It also sounds like the very slight dip into semi-open world that they have, where you slightly go off and explore something. You hate it so much.
Yeah. Oh no, a path.
So you have to walk slightly down a path or something. You're like, I don't want it.
It's a path, and then there's just reading at the end. Oh man, this just sounds like getting your mail.
This is like
I don't want to get my mail either.
Yeah. Walking down the driveway and then I was just reading at the end. Oh, yuck.
Yeah.
This is like with The Witness, right? They had some sort of exploration. It wasn't very much, but what they kind of did to reward you for exploring is that at a certain point in the game, you would start to realize that a lot of what you're seeing in the world is also a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So like parts of the world itself are puzzles, and then things that you would have seen earlier, you suddenly go, oh my god, I know what that thing on the other side of the island is now, and you run over there, and sure enough, it is like a puzzle.
Cool.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's
as well.
good.
I need to play that game.
It's really good.
Yeah,
and it's set up. It's set up so it looks so like basic, because it's like the puzzles are all these like boards.
Yeah.
And it gives this real like weird vibe of like you're just going from like these like stations to stations kind of thing.
But then you start to break out of
that. Yeah.
That sounds cool. All right. We are out of time. In fact, we've been out of time for a little while. But if you want to ask us questions for next time, could it be 2 weeks from now? Could it be 8 months from now? Am I going to have another baby? Who knows? I know.
I mean, you know.
We're not having another baby. We're done. You can email frenzyquestions@gmail.com. No more babies. You can, if you just set the subject line as no more babies. Hi, Blake. Thanks, Blake. No more babies, Blake.
No more blabies.
No more blabies.
No more blabies.
Yeah. So please make sure that the subject line is no more blabies, Blake. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all the podcast apps. You can leave a like and comment on YouTube. If the comment is just no more blabies, that's cool. But you can also just you can tell us, you can ask us questions. We'll read them out. We love hearing from you.
Questions are great.
Questions are great. Here's a question. Why are questions so great? Why don't you answer us in the comment section and just make sure that you put no more blabies in there somewhere, or we will not read it.
Hashtag.
Not read it out. I'm saying we will not
Let's
read it.
let's get a hashtag going. That's
Hashtag no more blabies,
Yeah.
Blake, specifically. And make sure there's a big gap.
Yeah.
No more blabies, big gap, Blake. And you can type big gap if you want. So,
I assumed you should type.
yeah. No more babies, big gap, Blake.
Yeah.
Which is what we're going to call you from now on.
Great.
Anyway, we love you. We'll be back in some period of time. Probably a couple weeks, but who knows. Bye!
Do you ever play FTL?
Yeah, quite a lot. I never got
I
good
played
at
quite
it.
a lot of it.
I think I beat
seemed
it
too
once.
hectic to me.
It's
Seemed too
really
stressful.
hard. The thing about that game is you can get really good at the whole journey to the boss, and then the boss is a functionally different fight to everything you've done prior. And so I just hit my head on that wall a lot until I was like, okay, I need to look up a guide.
That's a bummer.
I don't even know if I got to the boss. I don't remember. I played a shitload of it.
The boss is like this huge ship, and it's got like a wing and a big body section, and you fight it once, and like the first round is kind of easy, and the wing drops off, and then you have to travel to a new location, or it runs away, and you have to chase it down. And
This
you have
is
to do
sounding
it.
a little bit familiar.
It's really hard, and there's like all these different chambers, and your normal strategy of like disabling specific modules doesn't work all that well. You can't really send your crew in very easily because they can't get out. There's like lots of weird things about that fight.
That's strange that their final fight doesn't really play off the things that you've been.
It does. It just requires more specific tactics and knowledge of what that ship has available to it. Like, you'll have a harder time disable. You can't just strictly disable the weapons and survive, because there's like other ships that blast you, and you can't. You can try and kill the crew, and that is maybe fine, but you can't like starve them of oxygen, for example. It's just certain strategies that kind of fall apart at the end.
It's kind of a bummer.
It's fine.
Does it feel
What
like
it does is it forces you to diversify your strategy throughout
Yeah.
a run. But if you don't know that's coming,
Yeah,
if you
that's the thing that gets me, right? You can be going great, and you've never gotten to that before. It requires that you know what is ahead, so you can pre-plan.
Yes.
Which
I think
like
those
in a
games
lot of
though
games.
are like they're so intended to be played over and over again that like that's quite often the case.
I suppose, but I don't like it when. I don't like it in some games where you feel like you have to be doing some sort of build order almost type thing.
Yeah.
Like without anything in the actual game
teaching you that.
teaching you that,
Yeah,
other
that's
than
fair.
your knowledge of what's to come,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
later. You know,
that's fair.
Yeah, I
It's
played like
yeah.
300 hours of FTL. I do not remember the boss.
This
This sounds like me and fucking
That's a
roguelikes,
lot of
though.
time.
Yeah.
did you
I
look that
got
up on the
really
Steam
into
app?
it for a while. What?
Did you look that up on the Steam app?
Yeah.
I'm not
But it was like 2014 that I last played it. So
Oh, wow.
like,
Yep.
The other game that I think is a bit like that is Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
mm,
But I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
like Slay the Spire as well.
Yeah, that is fun.
You can end up with a final boss, and if your strategy is burn through all your cards as fast as you can because they're all super low cost, and you keep restocking them, and the boss is like, every time you play a card, you lose a health.
yeah.
Ah, fuck. Okay.
Like, cool.
I actually like Slay the Spire. Right? It just didn't quite land for me.
Interesting. I usually don't like turn-based roguelikes,
Yeah.
but that one hooked me, and I played it a lot.
I think it's like the roguelikiness of it got to me, where it's like sometimes you just know, this is not a good.
This run is
thing.
doomed or whatever.
It's like maybe I just start again. Like I don't like that kind of feel of some
I had
roguelikes.
I felt when I was playing it like the artifacts were too build defining.
Yeah.
And I just sort of felt like if I started a run, I just had like a really good artifact, and now I was playing with worse ones that I didn't really want to continue the run I was on, which is a thing that I like hate happening in roguelikes.
Okay.
Would it be interesting to pick an artifact at the start?
You can.
You can.
There's one of the things you can do is basically trade your artifact in for a different artifact.
I don't remember that.
But it's randomized. I think you don't get a choice of what the other artifact will be,
Yeah.
and also you don't necessarily always get that option.
Because I do remember there'd be times where it's like I'd have artifacts and be like, "This is a great run. I am like blasted through this. I've got a great thing." And then another run, I'm like, "This is just falling apart." Like before I've even gotten a quarter
Yeah,
of
and
the way through it.
in those cases, it kind of feels like you're sort of playing it out rather than...
Yeah.
And it's very, very hard for roguelikes to balance randomness and still make every run worth playing.
I see where you're coming from a little bit with Slay the Spire, but I think you can look at your run in advance. One of the things that I think is quite strong about that game is the way they structure their paths. You can quickly determine this is going to get me the most artifacts.
Yeah.
And usually that also means it's the highest risk.
Yeah.
Because you have to fight all these mini bosses. But because artifacts are so powerful, you go, okay, I'm going to commit hard to this path where I'm not going to get any health gain or whatever.
Yep.
But I'm going to get 4 artifacts instead of 2, and it ups my odds of getting something really good.
I mean, yeah, you're right that planning that out was good. Like I remember looking at the thing and being like, okay, I'll go this way. You know, this looks like I do like that.
Because I've played games that try to do similar things. There's one I actually played quite a lot of it. It's called Peglin, which is a Peggle version of Slay the Spire, basically. But the way you choose which path you take, and when you finish your board, it's like which column does your ball get shot down? And you have you can control that to a degree, but then there's if you hit a peg badly or whatever, it can bounce in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And also you with Slay the Spire, when you're choosing which way to go, you have the map in front of you. And with this, you have to go to a separate screen to look at the map to see what the next few steps will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you planning several steps ahead, which is what you need to do to be successful, is 2 clicks away, and it's really annoying.
That is just annoying.
All right, should we kick this off?
Yep.